today, only the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, and the country's commercial city of Lagos in the southwest have closed-circuit television CCTV cameras installed on their streets. The devices were to help in security surveillance for the prevention and fight against crime and criminality. But as we speak, not a single one of the supposed 2,000 CCTV cameras in these two cities is functioning. This is 6 years after the National Public Security Communication System NPSCSC project, which saw their installation was awarded in 2010 under the administration of President Goodluck Jonathan. Interestingly, the project, which is a critical and crucial national asset, was executed with a loan from the Chinese Exim Bank and was supposed to be expanded in operational scope to cover all the 36 states of the Federation. However, from all indications, what is on ground today is only but one of the failed national projects across the country.
Has there been any report that look, they use CCTV cameras to track down criminals or prevent crime or something? Has there been have you heard of any report like that? How long have you been in Lagos?
I was born in Lagos. I was born in Lagos, bred and brought up in Lagos. So I've not heard. I've not heard. To be sincere, I've not heard any of the case that they use CCTV to track down any criminal case in Lagos.
In this area, it discovered that the purpose of this system, according to the government, when the idea was formed, is to control all those kinds of insecurity and all this naked driving on the road. It discovered that since this thing are planted, there's no way to stop this problem. It's still continuing. So through that point, you can discover that it is not working.
It is Straight Talk, Nigeria's development promotion program on television, and I am TV. In the Paduma Hilltop Studios at the AIT World Headquarters in Abuja, the nation's capital. Welcome. It is common knowledge that Nigeria spends hundreds of billions of naira on security, including defense and internal or homeland security, year in, year out. It is in fact a tradition that the budget allocation for these sectors is usually the highest every year. And there is also the infamous security vote that the country's president and state governors do not account for. Amidst all this supposed expenditure on security and defense matters, Nigeria was still caught napping or was still unprepared when terrorism and terrorists found their way into the country in the last 10 years or so. And since then, Nigeria has continued to pay the highest price of losing the lives of thousands of our citizens due to the corruption that is associated with the preparation, passage, implementation, and monitoring of budgets at all levels in the country. The idea of the National Public Security Communication System project, which most Nigerians see more as the CCTV cameras, is said to have been conceived only after the nation's capital, Abuja, was bombed for the very first time on October 1, 2010 by suspected members of the movement for the emancipation of the Niger Delta MEND. Though the project was executed by the Chinese company ZTE Corporation, which has majority of its shares owned by the Chinese government, to understand what the project was supposed to do for Nigeria, we sat down with the Nigerian consultant to the project, Engineer Timasaniu Ahmed Rufai, who was at that time the managing director of the Nigeria Communications Satellite Company, NACOMSAT, and who allegedly also got sacked from office on the account of the strange but powerful forces within and outside the government that were battling to outdo each other for their very suspicious interests in the project.
Essentially, to
provide a multimedia communication. When we mean multimedia, we mean voice, video, and data communication capacities for the entire gamut of the national security systems. Meaning for the police, for the SSS, the military, for civil defense, for immigration, for immigration, for customs, and all the other related security agencies, Nigerian Defense, Nigerian Intelligence Agency, and the like. For them to be able to communicate within themselves, that is intra-communication, and also communicate amongst themselves, inter and intra-agency communications, without passing through the public communication systems, without using MTN.
So you're going to be classified as going to be Nigerian.
That's why it's a security communication network. They will be able to communicate with them for everything that mobile communication system can do and cannot do. Right? Without passing through the public network. Because once you pass through the public network, then your communication system is compromised. So this was what the project was all about. So the CCTV you are seeing is less than 8% or about 8% of the total project. So the country started with Abuja and Lagos as a pilot, and it was supposed to be extended to every 36 states. For the CCTV alone, the CCTV has capacity to record everything that happens within 200-300 meter square radius of the camera, and stored for 6 months or for 1 year. And all the crisis response in this country was supposed to be covered. Apart from this, it also, the principal main component of the project is what we call the Global Open Trunking Architectural Communication System, which was supposed to replace the radio Motorola handheld walkie-talkie that the police often are using. And if you are using walkie-talkie in Wuse or in Maryland, for instance, you may not be able to talk to somebody in Yaba or in Ikwe. The radius is limited to 2-3 kilometer maximum. But for this global open trunking architecture, you can do one-to-one trunking like a normal mobile communication system to everybody in the national security system nationwide. That is, a policeman can call somebody, a policeman in Sokoto can call somebody in Kano. A policeman in Kano can call any of his colleagues in Canada. Like that, nationwide. You can call, you can send video, you can send email, you can anything you can do on the mobile communication system you can do on this network. That's number one. Then you can also do a design network calls, meaning that you can do blueprint. You can just put a station and people just walking within that station on a loop. You can decide to put a divisional police on a loop. You can decide to put a state, the entire police network on a loop. You can put the entire national police on a loop on one-to-many communication systems. That is, the Inspector General of Police can talk to the entire police force from his office and just press on the button. The Commissioner of Police in the state can talk to the entire police, particularly in the event of emergency. Now, in most cases, when police reports to duty or another security agency need to address them, a crime can happen in this particular location. Let's say bank robbery, for instance. And the next, maybe just some 200-300 meters away, there are police, in hand there that don't even know that anything has happened, and those guys will just come and pass and go with their route. But if this system and network is working, every policeman is going to carry a phone, a contact phone, and there's an emergency intercommunication that in the event of any crisis, they just press the button. Then before you know, there's an alert within 100 to 300 kilometer radius, and every available forces, including the firefighters, they're all part of the network. So you mobilize to fight and encircle the environment.
The project was obviously one of the very best decisions taken by the Nigerian government in recent times, with the cybersecurity pilot project designed to have 1,000 of the CCTV cameras installed in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, and another 1,000 units in Lagos State.
This is a CCTV camera on the Wuse-Mabushi Road that is not connected to the source of power, talking of the solar panel. And there are many of this type of units scattered across the nation's capital. Obviously, these type of units are not working. This CCTV camera you are looking at is the same unit I visited over 2 years ago, precisely in April of 2014. What we have seen today is a unit where the cameras that should undertake the surveillance have been removed, and then the solar panel unit that was not connected to the CCTV camera itself is still not connected. And what we've seen today is that the solar panels, there are 3 of them, today 2 have been removed. And this is what we've seen about most of the CCTV camera units, not just in Abuja, the nation's capital, but also in Lagos, the nation's commercial center.
What has become of the National Public Security Communication System today is a project that cost the country $500 million, which is about 200 billion naira to execute. This figure, which is way higher than the individual budgets of 29 of the 36 states of the Federation and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, that have never had up to 200 billion naira as total value of their respective budgets for a fiscal year, does not even include the 3% interest rate on the loan collected from the Chinese Exim Bank to execute the project.
I won't scream that such money, 700 and so million is putting on it, is not working. The bulk of the blame is not only on the part of the government, our local contractors, the international contractors too, the foreign one that we are partnering with. What about their own sincerity too?
That's too bad. If they can spend such amount of money, at least if you spend, you must enjoy what you spend the money for. But we are not enjoying it. I don't even think there is something like that, because they say the one they install, they stole, they destroy, so if they spend a lot of money, we should enjoy our money.
The House of Representatives in 2016 launched what is said to be the 3rd public probe of the National Public Security Communication System project since 2011 by the National Assembly. Interestingly, there has never been a report from any of the probes, so we cannot even talk about any recommendations or resolutions by the lawmakers, despite the drama that usually surrounds public hearings during the investigations. For instance, during the said probe in 2011, 10 members of the Joint Committee of the House were allegedly sponsored by the contractor ZTE Corporation on a visit to China in April 2012, where a similar project was executed by the same company, and reports say that was the end of that particular probe. It has been established that the company also worked on other projects in Malaysia, Morocco, Senegal, and Ghana, where the quality of what was done is said to be higher than the project in Nigeria. This development raised a critical question about whether Nigeria has been shortchanged in the execution of the National Public Security Communication System project. And in search of these answers, this took us to the Ghana Street office of the Chinese company located in the highbrow Maitama district of the nation's capital, where we had earlier been asked to come with a formal letter requesting for media interview with officials of the company who told us they have to wait for approval before they can talk to us. What you are looking at is one of the few units of the CCTV cameras we have seen in Ojota, and we've also spotted some in places like Ikeja. But then the distance between this particular unit and the next is so far that if this facility was actually working, then it calls to question the kind of coverage that it would have provided for this country's commercial center on the coastline of the Atlantic Ocean.
So anybody who is criticizing the quality of the job done, his criticism is not based on any parameter, because they don't have the BOQ. I didn't prepare the BOQ. Like I told you, my contract was brought in after the year was awarded. You know, and when we saw the project scope and the nitty-gritties, we did our best to ensure that the contractor delivered. And I can tell you that what was delivered was up to standard.
The House of Representatives has been probing this project. So if I can remember, it's the third attempt to probe the project.
Yes.
And you've always been there.
Yes.
Is there anything that you think can come out of this probe, or should there even be a probe in the first place?
Yes, I don't think there should be any issue that will come out of the probe. There's nothing wrong in the probe per se, but it is what the issue is. What is the intention of the probe? It's not just the House of Representatives that have probed this project. EFCC have probed this project twice. First, when I was in the office, and thereafter. Even at some point in time when I felt that it wasn't moving with the pace, I personally petitioned the project to EFCC. I did the same thing to the Office of National Security Advisor. I did the same thing to the DSS, even after I left the office.
For the over 2 years that we followed this failed project, no serving or former government official involved with the project, those connected to it, or the ministries, departments, and agencies that will benefit from it, has been willing to talk about the project. And this is right from the police authorities to the Nigerian Communications Satellite Company, NIGCOMSAT, and the Federal Capital Territory Administration, FCTA. We, however, made a major breakthrough this time around with specific confirmation of the true state of the project, even though efforts to have access to the control center said to be located within the premises of the Nigeria Police Force headquarters in Abuja are yet to yield any results.
We are all aware that if they have been installed, they are not working. We are not denying that fact. So, effort will be made to get them functional. But, you see, we don't allow challenges to bring down our effort in trying to make crime prevention and control an issue. Challenges will never finish, but they are all surmountable. So if CCTV camera is not working, then we work with what we have.
So why is the project not working now?
Because no money was provided for operations. No fuel. Fuel, that's what shut down the project. It's as simple as that. Like I told you, the network consists of about 696 BTS. The towers, all these telecommunication towers nationwide. And this, each one is powered, as you know, by generators. So the MSC will have two shooting centers. One here, the core network here in Abuja, and one in Lagos. Then 12 shooting centers across the country. They're all powered by generators. So, when the contractor finished their job in 2012, sometimes I think December, no one was provided for the day-to-day fueling, day-to-day provision of security of all our installations, nationwide, and other, overhead, daily overhead.
Was it not, was all of this not included in the budget?
It was not. It was supposed to be provided from the police fund. So we made, all efforts were made. At some point in time, government approved some monies. And the last council in the police affairs sat on it. Mr. James Obaby can come to here and defend himself. He sat on it. They have some other priorities. And this is the catastrophe we face in this country. So this is exactly what has happened. There was the pump sets had changed. I think this project will have passed through about 5 pump sets. If I can remember, at the Ministry of Police Affairs. And when it was completed in 2012, the man who was there, James Obaby, and the Honorable Minister approved the release of about 3 billion. But the man refused.
Who was the minister at the time?
Caleb.
No. Moving forward,
yes.
How can we get this project to work again?
Yes. Now, first of all, is for the government to realize that this project is fundamental to national security systems. It is absolutely necessary for the sake of quick capacity to react. Because you cannot control crime 100%, but you can react very, very quickly and minimize the damage, the collateral damage in particular. It is important that the government, particularly the office of the NSA or the office of the DSS, to take over the entire project. And first of all, use it for the primary purpose of communications within the entire security system, so that they can share intelligence, so that they can react, so that they can plan and strategize, so that they can preempt, they can prevent.
We are making efforts to also get on this program the former Minister of Communications, Omobola Johnson, and the then Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Police Affairs, Dr. James Obiagbo, who have been directly accused of having deliberately worked against the successful takeoff of the National Public Security Communications System project when they were in office. For authorities in Lagos State and the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, where this project was supposed to have taken off, they cannot continue to wait indefinitely for a project that the President Muhammadu Buhari administration is also yet to even show any considerable interest to get it working. In Lagos, for instance, ignoring the failed federal government National Public Security Communication System project, the state government, under the leadership of Governor Akinwumi Ambode, on August 17, 2016, approved the design and execution of a project for the installation of 13,000 new CCTV cameras across the state.
The government has now decided to deploy 13,000 closed-circuit television CCTV cameras and security sensors for surveillance and crime prevention.
And for the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, it is the Nigeria Police Force that is championing a private sector-driven initiative to get the capital city covered by CCTV cameras. The initiative, which was unveiled in July 2016, is for now to cover areas under the operations of the Wuse Divisional Police Headquarters, with plans for expansion across the city center. The FCT Police Command says the new digital equipment is to help enable it provide surveillance across the nation's capital.
As the Assistant Commissioner of Police Operations, I want to let us know that I go out every day trying to police the federal capital territory. Afternoon, night, I go out. This is taking us to a stage where my going out becomes a little bit more scientific. I sit down in my office and from my tab, I view the rules of the capital city.
And though we do not yet know how much it will cost the Lagos state government and the private concerns interested in the new CCTV projects in the nation's capital, these fresh investments in the new closed-circuit television CCTV cameras in Lagos and Abuja would have been unnecessary if the National Public Security Communication System project, in which the country spent $500 million, the equivalent of 200 billion naira, was working. And today on our call for action, Lagos is fast becoming a model in many ways on how to manage a city in Nigeria. For instance, to ensure that residents use pedestrian bridges, strong barricades have now been constructed by the state government to restrict access across the highways, with canopies also mounted over the bridges to encourage pedestrians to use the bridges under the rain or even in the sun. And we must say hundreds and thousands of people are now using the pedestrian bridges. Let's share the sights and sounds with you. This can work in the densely populated city of Lagos, then it can also work in Abuja, Port Harcourt, Kano, and the other cities and towns across the country. Using obviously weak barricades, as is the case in Abuja, has not helped in any way, as residents easily cut them open to make their way through. And we must also say the use of pedestrian bridges for trading or begging by the destitute must be stopped. That's Straight Talk. I am TV. Thanks a lot for investing your time with us, and we must also appreciate our partners, Media Dimensions, for the support. Goodbye from Abuja.